Hi, I'm Alina Guyon, and this is my family history. In this video, I'm going to focus a bit more on my mom's side of the family, just because my dad's side of the family's lineage is a bit harder to trace. Come on, let me show you where it all started. It all started right here in Denmark. Otto Pedersen Dickey was born on August 14th, 1892, in the small village of Skinnerup, Denmark. He was the eighth child of his parents, Petter and Julian. He was raised on a farm there. He worked for the Danish military before deciding to move to America. He was 21 years old when he left on a ship called State of Florida for America. He arrived in New York City at Ellis Island in April of 1913. He then traveled to Sydney, Montana to join his brothers at their farm. Otto was then drafted into the Army in World War I and stationed in Camp Lewis, Washington. It was there when he became an official U.S. citizen. He stayed there until 1918 when he returned back to Montana. When he returned, he filed a homestead claim for 320 acres of land in Sydney, Montana. The Homestead Act of 1892 granted Americans plots of public land for the price of a small filing fee. The idea was to get immigrants a reason to move out west. At the time, it was somewhat undiscovered land. The idea was that they would develop the land and create something productive out of pretty much nothing. After struggling for a few years, Otto was finally able to produce wheat. Now to give some background information on my great-grandmother, so I can show how my great-grandmother met my great-grandfather. Emma Graveson was born on November 27, 1901, in Sennels, Denmark. Sennels is another small village near the one Otto grew up in. Otto's sister had married Emma's brother, which made them already related. In 1922, Otto saved up enough money to travel back to Denmark to visit his family. When he did this, he met Emma through his sister, who was again married to her brother. They fell in love, and when Otto had returned to America, they kept correspondence for the next 6 months. Finally, Emma decided to move to America to find Otto, and her journey as an immigrant started. She arrived at Ellis Island on February 29, 1924, where she then got on a train to Chicago. Then she saved up her money until she could meet up with Otto and get married. The two got married in March 15, 1924, then settled on a farm in Sydney, Montana. Soon after, in 1925, the two had their first of 13 children. My grandmother, Selma, was the fourth born in the family. Selma grew up in Sydney, Montana, in the same house on the same farm. She never really left the area, except for Bible camp and visiting her ill sister in the hospital, until she left for college. Selma attended Kinman Business University in Spokane, Washington. Now I will let her tell some of her story.
Well, that's when I started working, and my first job was at the Washington Water Power Company in Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also worked for the General Electric in Portland. And then from there, I went to Hanford Works in Richland, and that was where I met Bill.
Bill Nielsen is my mom's dad, or my grandfather. He came from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and was born on December 26, 1930. My grandmother and grandfather were married in August 1956. He hadn't finished college yet, so the two of them went to Seattle so that he could attend the University of Washington. Soon after, my mom's eldest brother was born, Pat. Next came her brother Mike, and finally her. My mom, Cheryl, was born on October 27, 1964. Selma and Bill bought a house in West Seattle and settled there and raised their 3 kids. My mom, Cheryl, grew up in West Seattle and never really left. She loves Seattle, and now I will have her explain a bit as to why she never left.
Obviously born in West Seattle. We lived in the same house, had a real stability in our neighborhood. Went all the way through high school in West Seattle, And all of my community was here. I had a lifelong groups of friends and families. As soon as I was out of high school, I was very motivated to buy my first house. I started my business shortly thereafter, and so I was more focused on fixing up my house and then bought another house. So I always kind of found my home here in West Seattle.
Now for a bit of history on my dad's side. My dad, Peter Guyon, was born in Oakland Naval Hospital on February 9th, 1956. He grew up in Stockton, California, and lived there until he was an adult in 1976. He was the fourth generation of his family to live in Stockton. His father wasn't really a part of his life, and his mother's lineage is hard to trace back because her father wasn't a part of her life either. But once my dad was an adult, he decided to move to San Francisco, where he lived for 13 years. Now I will let him tell some of his story.
I left San Francisco to move to Seattle in 1989 to help my brother Gordon expand his designer showroom. And I ended up buying a house here and staying.
Now my dad will explain how he met my mom.
We were at a singles Valentine's Day function, and I met her there.
My parents met on February 14th, 1997, and were married on February 21st, 1991. They then had my brother, Peter Guyon Jr., on February 17th, 2000. Then I came on October 3rd, 2001. My parents love West Seattle, have a small business here, so my brother and I grew up here and have never left yet. Now that I have gone through my family globalization analysis, I wanted to review some of the different topics I covered. I was reminded of the discourse that globalization is deemed new. Globalization is the idea that the world is becoming more interconnected, and migration is one way to connect different people and spread culture. Because migration goes back hundreds of years, this is a way of proving that globalization is not a new phenomenon. I also talked about people moving to find better opportunities, which we learned about in Lesson 5. Thank you so much for listening.